Military boarding and seizure. Britain prepares a large-scale crackdown on Russia's shadow fleet, and how Russia is deliberately targeting energy infrastructure during extreme cold. We will talk about this with political analyst, European Leadership Network UK member Alexandra Filippenko. Alexandra, glad to see you and thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Alexandra, President Volodymyr Zelenskyy reported another massive Russian attack on Ukraine overnight. The enemy launched nearly 300 strike drones, most of which were Shaheeds, as well as 18 ballistic and 7 cruise missiles. Russia repeatedly finds ways to demonstrate that its criminal intentions know no limits. The enemy deliberately waited for January to begin attacking Ukrainians' infrastructure, aiming to plunge millions of people into extreme freezing conditions. And right now, it's unbearably cold. How are Ukrainians' international partners likely to respond to this massive escalation in attacks, especially targeting civilian infrastructure in winter, in your opinion?
Well, first of all, I must say that it is being noted on the American side. It's being noted not only by the officials of the Trump administration, but also in the American press, explaining the explanation of what is happening in Ukraine. We are seeing it over and over again. And it was very important to hear Tammy Bruce, the representative of the Trump administration in the UN, in the Security Council of the UN, saying that these attacks, these Russian attacks on civilian infrastructure and these attacks on Ukraine are basically a reply. This is what we see from Russia to all the initiatives of the American side. And it's a downturn in the negotiation. It is an actual response. We see the true colors of the Russian side, according to Tammy Bruce, according to the representative of the White House, of the Trump administration in the Security Council, and this mirrors what the American side is actually talking about within the United States. So they do see what Russia is doing now, what Russia is doing in this cold, as the actual readiness, or actually not readiness, of the Russian side to start some kind of a negotiation, or even to talk about any kind of a ceasefire. Obviously, when we see these attacks, when we see these terrible attacks on Ukraine, as a response of the Russian side to the fake attack and it was the Trump administration, the president himself, the Pentagon, and everyone, all American officials declared that there was no attack on Putin's residence by the Ukrainian drones. So they see it as a response not to this fake attack, but actually to the negotiation, to some kind of, well, this is a response to what President Trump has been saying for months and months. Everyone needs to stop. Everyone needs to stop. There needs to be a ceasefire, and then there should be a negotiation about some kind of a peace deal or anything of that sort. But the American side, as put by Tammy Bruce, the representative of the United States, they do see these attacks as a response to the initiative of President Trump. And that is why this brings us to the question of what the United States are going to do now. Their hands are full, of course, right now with all the issues that are happening on the American continent and across the globe in the Middle East. But still, in the back of their minds, in the back of the minds of the White House and of the Trump administration, there is this period of failed negotiation with the Russian side. President Trump continues to say that he thought that this would be the easiest negotiation and he couldn't stop this war as of now. But President Trump continues to say that he is going to stop it.
And we see that, yes, President Donald Trump stated that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has no cards. There is only one, Donald Trump. He made this remark in an interview with the New York Times. According to Trump, if Zelenskyy did not have his support, it would have been a real disaster, and everyone knows it. So why did Trump bring up his Trump card again? What does it mean?
Well, for President Trump, it's very important to note and to make sure that everyone knows that without him, there is no possibility of any kind of negotiation between the Russian side and the Ukrainian side. President Trump is sure that his team can actually broker some kind of a deal with the Russian side. It's been failed. The negotiation has been failing and failing and failing. And then each time, even when President Trump not only talked on the phone with Vladimir Putin, but also met Vladimir Putin in Alaska, nothing actually changed. The war continued. People continued to die, and Russia continued attacking Ukraine with missiles, with drones, attacking civilians, attacking, of course, the military. We continue seeing that, even though President Trump was so invested in the negotiations. His team was so invested in the negotiation. Nothing actually happened. But for President Trump, it's very important to make everyone believe and make sure that everyone knows that the negotiation itself is happening only because of him. He was sure that peace through business is possible with Vladimir Putin. It's not, as we can see, and maybe there will be some kind of a new approach from the American side. But for now, talking to the press, talking to the American people, President Trump continues to say that only he can broker a peace deal. Only he can broker a ceasefire between the Russian side and the Ukrainian side. So this is why he continues to talk about it the same way that he continues talking about the election that was stolen in 2020. He still talks about the stolen election, the fake election of 2020, and that he was supposed to win the presidency in 2020. It is a painful subject for President Trump, the same way as a failed negotiation with the Russian side, with Vladimir Putin, that peace deal that he said he would have in 24 hours after becoming American president. We should all remember that while the 2024 election was coming, we all thought, did President Trump mean that he would broker a peace deal as soon as he wins in November 2024? Or is he talking about brokering a peace deal in January 2025 when he takes the oath and becomes the president and moves into the White House? Almost a year passed. Nothing happened. No ceasefire. It's a failed negotiation. It's a failed promise as of now, or at least a promise of ending the war in 24 hours is a failed promise, no matter after the win or after becoming the president. So it's a painful subject. The same way the painful subject is the election of 2020. So this is why President Trump continues to talk about the election of 2020 and continues to talk about the fact that only he can broker a peace deal. So it doesn't have to do with President Zelenskyy or with the Ukrainian side. It has to do with this feeling of frustration that President Trump could not achieve a peace deal or at least a ceasefire with the Russian side almost in a year time of him being president.
Annexation of Greenland. Democrats have introduced a bill blocking any attempts by Trump to purchase or seize the island. This initiative came immediately after Republicans submitted their own bill on Monday, which would grant the president the authority to take all necessary measures to bring the island under U.S. jurisdiction. How realistic is the prospect of the U.S. actually annexing Greenland, in your opinion?
Well, I think that Congressman Randy Fine, the congressman from Florida who introduced this Greenland Annexation and Statehood Act, it is creating a PR stunt, actually. This is a photo op for Randy Fine, who is known for his racy ideas, for example, regarding deporting all Muslims from the United States. This was the idea of Congressman Randy Fine. He's been congressman in the United States Congress since 2025. He came into the place of Mike Waltz, who became then the national security advisor, and then, as we all know, moved on to the UN. So Randy Fine is quite new to Congress, and he wants to be seen. He wants to be heard. He wants to again and again say that he is ready to support President Trump's ideas. But I don't believe that this bill that was introduced, this Annexation and Statehood Act of Greenland, can actually go through the Committee of International Foreign Affairs, let alone Congress itself, let alone becoming a law. So that other bill that was introduced by a Democrat from California, Jimmy Gomez, the representative Jimmy Gomez, who's been in Congress since 2017, so he has a little more supporters probably in the Congress and friends in the Congress that can support his bill. This bill that he introduced prohibits funding for military invasion of Greenland, prohibits funding of any campaigns of acquiring Greenland, because we heard from the Trump administration this idea of buying Greenland, actually. So both these bills were introduced to state an opinion, to state a view. On the other hand, so I don't think that they will go a long way, both these bills, but it was important to state this is the way the Republicans see it. This is the way the Democrats see it. But both parties, the Republicans and the Democrats, yes, they see Greenland as an important point. They see Greenland as an important island. They see Greenland as a potential opportunity for the opponents of the United States to influence the United States or to hinder the security of the United States. So yes, in national security interests of the United States, we see that it's important to have Greenland as an ally of the United States. But I don't think that it's extremely important to have Greenland as a state or a territory, let alone as a state of the United States. For all congressmen, it's obvious that, of course, the control of Greenland by, for example, China or Russia would have been a tragedy. But Denmark is very powerful in refuting this idea that Chinese or Russian forces are working in Greenland or in Greenland's maritime territory, in the waters of Greenland. So I think it would be difficult for the Trump administration to move on with their military idea of occupying Greenland or annexing Greenland, but it would be preferable for the Trump administration and for congressmen to see Greenland being militarily more powerful. Maybe they would want to see, maybe they would be happy with only making the American military base bigger. Maybe more military opportunities for the United States on the territory of Greenland. And maybe opportunities for the American fleet in Greenland. Maybe the ships of the American Navy would be stationed in Greenland, and something to that effect happening. But I don't see a military clash between the United States and Denmark regarding Greenland. And of course, all those talks of annexation or of Greenland becoming a state, this seems to me as a real PR stunt by quite racy congressman or notorious congressman who had previously some little bit wild ideas.
And about Shadow Fleet tankers, the UK government has developed a unique legal mechanism that grants the Royal Navy greater authority to conduct forceful operations on the high seas. According to BBC sources, official London is preparing to deploy military personnel to board and seize vessels of the Shadow Fleet, which Russia, Iran, and Venezuela used to finance aggression and circumvent energy sanctions, What message might these send to Russia, Iran, and other states whose vessels are targeted, and how might they react?
Well, this is a direct message. This is even not a message, this is an action. And an action on the American side, too, because let's look at the tanker that was boarded by the American forces near Iceland. The American forces that boarded that tanker, actually the planes with the American military that boarded the tanker, they left the UK. They left the American base in the UK. So it was an operation of the United States with the United Kingdom. So this sent the first signal. And this brings us back to this idea of sanctions. We've talked a lot about the bill of Lindsey Graham and the idea of 500% tariffs on all on everything that's being imported from the countries that continue to buy Russian resources, Russian natural resources. And President Trump doesn't see the necessity of this bill as of now, because he says and he repeats the same thing. We have enough sanctions. We just need to make them work. We need to make work those sanctions that we already have in place. And what we are seeing now from the UK, from the European Union also, and from the American side, first of all, is that this idea of having those sanctions work, the sanctions that are already in place, and of course, stopping the shadow fleet, stopping those tankers that are financing Russian military machine, those tankers that are financing the opportunity of the Russian forces to continue their war in Ukraine, is the way that this can happen already today. This is you don't need to have any new sanctions to stop that. You don't need any new to adopt any new sanctions that would affect some other countries like China or India. You just need to make those sanctions work, the sanctions that are already in place. So this is not only a signal, this is an action of the British side that first helped the United States seize that tanker on January 7th, that tanker close to Iceland, since it's been an operation between the United States and the United Kingdom. And of course, this sends a signal to Russia, to China, to any other country that will try to use the shadow fleet, that they will work towards occupying those tankers, taking those tankers and taking that oil. And regarding the United States, I believe that after that operation on January 7th, we will see more joint operations by the US and the UK, and maybe by the US and the European Union.
Hope. And Finland and Sweden are calling for tougher sanctions against Russia. According to the foreign ministers of both countries, Finnish Foreign Minister Elina Valtonen stated that the EU must prepare a full ban on maritime transport in coordination with the G7. Reducing Russia's energy exports limits its ability to finance the brutal war against Ukraine. The EU should also tighten import quotas and restrict the export of luxury goods. To what extent could tighter import quotas and restrictions on luxury goods impact Russia's ability to finance the war in Ukraine? And what about 20th package of sanctions?
Well, we see that the European Union is trying to take more responsibility, and this is exactly what the American side wants to see. They want to see the European Union being more powerful in countering Russia and countering any kinds of Russian imports in the waters of the European Union and of the European Union countries. If we now can say that Russia basically lost Venezuela because those tankers that were seized were coming with Venezuelan oil, but they were the parts of the Russian shadow fleet. If we can say, we don't know what will happen with Iran. Will Russia lose Iran? This would be also a heavy blow for the Russian side. But in any case, we understand that even after losing, let's say, Venezuela, Russia is restricted with its possibilities of importing some goods and exporting some natural resources. So the European Union wants to seize that opportunity. And for the European Union, again, it is not making some new sanctions. They don't need the next package of sanctions. They just need to invoke those sanctions that are already in place. They just need to make those imports stop. So there is this opportunity of the European side, especially with the support of the United States, and seeing what is happening on the international arena, seeing what is happening with Venezuela, what is potentially happening with Iran. If for China, for example, it's not such a big loss, it's a loss politically, but it's not a loss financially. But for Russia, it's a huge blow financially and politically, and Iran can be a huge blow financially too. So the European Union is trying to seize on that opportunity. And of course, this is why the European Union, on the one hand, yes, they can move on to new sanctions, but they can just make those sanctions that are already in place work tougher and be tougher on any kinds of imports and exports that have to do with Russia and especially with Russian shadow fleet.
Alexandra, thank you so much for this conversation, meaningful conversation, and for your steadfast support of Ukraine and its people. Alexandra Filippenko, political analyst, European Leadership Network UK member, was with us today. Please share this interview and continue supporting Ukraine. Alexandra, wish you all the best and see you.
See you. Thank you. Wish you all the best.
Thank you.